Welcome back. Me and Tate today in our Tavern Talk, we're talking about how we plan for sessions, how we plan for encounters, and what type of goals that we have as we do it, and also how we stay on track once we throw it into our players' hands and they have the opportunity to introduce chaos to our order.
Right. This is something that really eats at a lot of DMs. It still eats at me even.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the best DM, but even it's nice to have some tips, I think, for when you're making an encounter. Making an encounter, a session, everything on your own, you know.
Now, how would you describe yourself as a DM? Would you say that you're a fairly new DM?
Oh yeah, 100% fairly new DM. I mean, I've done little one-shots here and there, but I didn't really start DMing until Forgotten God.
Right.
That was like 6 months ago.
And
That's
how
when I was really
often did you run a session of a Forgotten God and it went to plan? Never.
Oh my gosh. Even when I was railroading you guys pretty hard, it never really went to plan.
Right. And what type of complications did you have that threw you off?
My favorite example is the one where you guys killed Sarge. It's episode 7, Forgotten Beginning.
Yeah. You should watch it. It's probably the best episode from the Forgotten God series so far.
Yeah, and then we stopped doing it because Max had to go to Taiwan. Anyway, when you guys... So that entire session was really, really funky for me.
Yeah.
Because I realized that what I was doing for Forgotten God wasn't working. And I was like, well, let's reevaluate this. Let's reevaluate how I'm doing this.
Because I feel like that was your most thoroughly planned out session to date.
Well, what's funny about that? So the way I do sessions.
Yeah.
Let me just start by describing how I do a session. So originally, I come up with a story. It was kind of like a script.
Yeah.
Not even kind of like a script. It was a script. It was, this is how I want everything to run. This is how I want the characters to move. This is how I want the villains to move. This is how I want the story to flow. It didn't work very well working with people doing that because you guys want to do other things. I'm like, well, you're messing with my script. This is my story. Let's knock it off. And then I realized, man, I am railroading these guys so hard. We had a couple of conversations about it, about what I was doing as a DM and what I wasn't doing as DM, what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, that kind of thing. I got some tips and tricks from you. And then I was thinking back. There's a guy. His name's Johnny Giadoni. He's a dungeon master for Oxventure, and I love Oxventure. I would highly recommend you guys watch Oxventure if you get a chance. They're great. They're really funny. They're a bunch of people who've never played D&D before playing D&D for the first time, and it's just they're just awesome.
And we're not sponsored by them.
No, we're not. I just love them. We don't work with them or anything. They're just a great example of good, clean D&D fun. I love them. And Johnny Giadoni, he's such a phenomenal dungeon master. And he made a video on his channel. He's got a channel called Dicebreaker or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, not sponsored, not anything. But hashtag non-spawn, you know. Hashtag not spawn. But I was watching his video on, I think it was on Dicebreaker, where he was talking about his time as the Oxventure dungeon master. He was explaining what he does as a dungeon master and how he plans stuff. And I'd watched it and I loved his video, and then I started DMing. I just kind of forgot about it. Just threw it all out the window. I don't remember much of his video. Yeah. He was describing, things that he'd recommend something, and then he'd give an example of what he did. The only one that I really remembered was he said it's like when I made this. He was talking about a specific session they did where they went onto like some pirate ship, and it was one of the characters' pirate ships, and they were taking it back from his old crew that mutinied against him, and he was a. They were talking about this. They were talking about the session. They were talking about this session. He said, the only thing I really knew about this session was who the bad guy was. So I knew that they were going to go on. He said, I knew who the bad guy was. I knew where he was. I knew that these 4 or 5 crew members would be involved trying to find Corazon was the name of the character.
Right.
And I knew where they started. He said, everything else I left up to the players. So at one point they said, is there like a boathouse we can go to? He said, yep, there is. In fact, there's one really close by. He didn't make like a hard and fast world map or anything. It's a lot easier for him in that case because he did everything theater of the mind. Combat was theater of the mind, everything was theater of the mind.
And in my opinion, I feel like if you are running theater of the mind, as DM and players, you have to be very descriptive in order to make it flow, to make it feel like you have options. So like players have to ask the DM questions. What's here? Is this thing here? Is this thing here?
Right.
And as a DM, when you start describing a scene, and even while you're describing little parts throughout the combat, you have to describe above and beyond in order to paint that word picture.
Right, absolutely. And he was really good at that, but the thing that was really cool about what he did was everything was done by the players.
Right.
Whatever they wanted to do, they said, like, he didn't make a solution. He made a problem, and he did such a good job of setting up the problem that the players wanted to find a solution.
Right.
But that was what was so great about it, is he didn't have the solution, they had the solution. And I was, after we got talking that one day about the Forgotten God, I went, you know what? That's what I need to do. So that's what I started doing. That's why that one was so it was funny, because he mentions, like, that was one of your most descriptive ones ever. It's like, yeah, it's actually the one I put the least amount of effort into.
Really?
Yeah.
Session 7?
Session 7.
I felt like you put a lot of effort into it because you had a whole map already drawn up.
Yeah.
And so I felt like you were a lot more prepared for that one than you were for the Bullywug Queen.
Funny thing about that, though. So, because I didn't put so much effort into it, I was able to adapt.
Right.
So with the Bullywug Queen, one of the issues I had with that one was I had ideas for maps, and then we didn't have a way of filming at the time. And one of the big issues with that, I thought, was we had these audio recordings, and I'm like, well, I don't want to have a map out, because we're going to reference the map, and people aren't going to be able to see it. So I had a big map planned out for the Bullywug Queen fight. I had a big map for every fight. Every single time I've had a big map drawn out. I mean, if you see my notes for the earlier sessions, I got maps drawn out. I was like, well, I can't use them anymore. So one of the issues is I overplanned and didn't have any way, because I planned every single aspect of the campaign, I didn't have any room to wiggle, really. So when I had room to wiggle, the reason that one flowed so well is because you as players were the ones who were actually directing the flow of everything. The only things I knew about Session 7 was you guys were going to start off in the prison carts.
Right.
I was going to do a little cutscene thing, and then I was going to move you guys into the prison. I knew what items were in each person's prison cell, but I didn't have any plans for what you were going to do with those items. I think someone had a rat bone, someone had a bucket, someone had I think Garrett had the bucket.
Yeah, he did put it on his head.
Yeah, I just gave. Of the 6 cells, 5 of them had items.
Yeah.
I had no idea what you guys were gonna do with the items. I had no plans, no specific puzzles. It was just, here are some items. Have fun.
Right.
Do what you will. And Garrett was really clever. He gave Eden the bucket. She slammed the bucket over the dude's head, and I made that work. You know, I made an unarmed strike, and it blinded the guy because he had a bucket over his head now, so he had to spend his turn taking off the bucket.
And my character Valorane was able to make a distraction, trying to get the guards' attention while everybody got into position behind them in their own jail cells. Right,
but that was all you guys. You guys came with all of that. That entire prison escape was all on you guys,
including Randolph.
Randolph had a lot that helped out too. But I based what he did off of what you guys were doing. But yeah, so I knew, the only thing that I knew about that session was where you guys started, what was in your cells, where your equipment was being stored, and where the 2 bosses were.
Right.
That's all I knew. I spent a lot of time drawing the map, and that was what I spent the most time on. So as a result of this, of how well this last session went, with what I remembered from Johnny Chiodoni, I was thinking about it, and I was like, this is how I need to start doing sessions. So the way I do it now, when I design a session, my first thought is, what are they trying to accomplish? So for your guys, in your guys' case, in episode 7, it was escape prison.
Right.
That's all you had to do. Escape the prison. That's my first step.
Yeah.
Tate's step number 1, patent pending, and then at that point, after I do that, I try to figure out where you guys are. So again, you guys are in prison. What can I give you to help you get out of prison? You know, I don't plan every intricate detail, because it's like, well, they need to get out of prison. So they're starting the prison. They need to get out of prison, right? Because in order for them to get where I want them to be, escaping prison, they have to obviously find a way to escape the prison.
Right.
Step 3 is how do I get them from where they're at to where they need to be.
Right.
That's all I think about. That's all I do. So it's like, well, they don't have any items. So I'm going to give 5 of the cells a random item and just see what they do with it. And then I had Randolph run to that door and try to get into it to show you guys this is where your equipment is.
Uh-huh.
So you guys get in there to get your equipment.
Right.
And then it's like, well, I need them to get here, so how do I block off the entrance? Well, it's being attacked by goblins. You're going to go out the front door if there's goblins attacking the place?
No.
No. So you guys skip the front door,
Right.
so I knew you keep going down the hallway, and you end up in the only place you can go from there is inside the library.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to the library, and then you see the guy there, and you fight him.
Right.
Step 3 is, to me at least, the most important, because that's how you get here.
Right.
And you let the player, I mean, you need to know things. You need to be accomplishing something. And it has to make sense. I was talking to a gal the other day.
Yeah.
She was playing a lot of D&D with somebody. And they had this really cool story going where her character's mom got kidnapped. And so like, oh, we need to go and save mom. Right. And then the dungeon master, for whatever reason, is like, yeah, you guys are actually treasure hunting in a random cave now. Had nothing to do with the story. It was like a filler episode. What is this accomplishing? Not a darn thing.
Yeah.
This is not accomplishing a darn thing doing this. So,
now, is it cool? Probably, but as a DM, it was like, you're trying to facilitate a story, and once you get your players hooked on a story, and you don't have to provide any more hooks for them to continue the story,
right?
Don't throw them anything else. They're already hooked.
I left the hard planning to you guys. Basically, I came with point A, point B, point C, point D, and point E.
Right.
And I left you guys to draw the lines. That's how I think you should do it. In my opinion, when it comes to planning for a session, less is more.
Right.
So, but you said that you do stuff more informational based. That's something that I've definitely, especially with all of them, I've seen that you have a lot of information. But I am curious to hear what your process is.
Right. So, like, your method, knowing where they begin and knowing where they're going to end, and everything in between is very much similar to how I would plan out an entire campaign. What I did is I knew where each of your characters were and where each of your characters wanted to be. And if you didn't know where your character wanted to be, I then made an idea of where I wanted your character to be at the
So
end.
you let it be our idea first, and then if we didn't have an idea, you're like, frick it, I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah. Or, like, you might know where you want your character to be, and I'll be like, well, I kind of want this to happen, and it'll be definitely along the lines. It's just like, yeah, you make it there, but you're on the other side of the tracks. In addition to that, I made a fourth, like, overarching one. Like, this is the one that is, like, the overarching plot that is happening. And this is happening regardless of whether you guys do anything about it. And if you guys wanted to get involved in it, you can. And if you don't want to get involved in it, you can just avoid it. But this is like on the settings arc. Since everything that I did in my campaign was hidden behind veils of mystery, my campaign or my sessions needed to be very information based. And I learned this in a crash course scenario because I realized, oh my gosh, they don't know anything. How are they supposed to solve the mystery that I've thrown at them at the beginning of last month? And the month is starting to end, and I was hoping that they'd be done by now, but they don't know anything. So this is how I plan a session.
Okay, so let's see your planning.
So I figure out what they know. And it's like, yes, okay, this is what they know. And at the beginning of the session, I go over that, and I figure out what I want you to discover within the next 3 sessions. Or at least, what I want your characters to learn about their individual stories, or about the setting story that they're going through. Okay. And I have a couple of ideas of how they can discover that information and where they can discover that information. But it's got to be a loose band because, like you said, they are going to just go off and try to solve the problems in their own way. I've made it really obvious where information can be found.
Right. If you don't know, go to the Kings, go to Dorithia, go to the Church of the Raven Queen.
And I discovered that I needed these sources of information for you because, like, session 1, it was like, yep, you guys are in the city, figure your stuff out. Now I have an idea of what type of information I need you to know and where you can get it, and I'll let you know where you can get it.
Okay.
thing is I also plan out what type of roles you can make once you're interacting with those individuals to get different information. But that's basically how I would plan a session. I wouldn't really have much other than that besides maybe encounters planned out. And I'll probably have 3 encounters underneath my belt of something I could throw out, depending on different environments that you are exploring as you went throughout my world, trying to gather that information. Thanks for watching our video. We had a lot of time putting it together for you, and to make sure that you let us know that you enjoyed watching it, you better like, you better subscribe, and you better leave a comment.
Is that a threat?
No. Yeah. What is a threat is if you don't, you're going to roll a nat 1 the next time we roll for initiative.
Hey, if you guys really enjoyed this, please go to the comments and comment what you guys do when you plan for a session. Or if you're a player that hasn't DM'd before, what you would like to see when people plan for stuff. Like, what's something that you noticed has been a problem that you wish people could correct?